Okay, our next presenter is Mr. Alfonso Hernandez. He's going to talk about the Movimiento Estudiantil, high school walkouts, organizing, establishing M.E.C.H.A project. Alfonso?
Yeah, I was a graduate student at Fresno State in 73, 74, 75, around there, and we haven't had the Chicano Youth Center wasn't developed at the time, and I was just doing things, and then I remember being a graduate student, and some people came over, and Willie Lopez came over and said, Alfonso, there's some parents at Lincoln Elementary and Sanger that need some help. And I really didn't want to go because I was doing my studies. And he said, okay, well, finally during the Easter break, during the Christmas break, he saw me and I went and saw the grandmother. We had a little boy by the name of Marcos Barrera. He was 5 years old. They put him in a cage in the back of a kindergarten room for being hyperactive, which is part of our autism to them. And they didn't know what to do with him. And after they couldn't keep him in there, they put him for they put 2 padlocks on his cage so he wouldn't get out. The grandmother didn't know what was going on. I finally had time. I went and talked to the grandmother and said, on Monday we're going to go and have a walkout. She didn't know what I was talking about. She spoke a little bit Spanish, and we got together and we put some flyers out. First day of the walkout, we had 500 people walking in front of the school. A lot of the grandmothers that were out there really wanted to beat up that teacher, the lady that put the little boy in the cage. It was really something to see our grandmothers. Every time we saw that lady, we had to hold back some of the mothers. By the peak of the walkout, we had 2,300 kids walk out of the high school, and the elementary and junior high school. Because they knew. We had all the hyperactive organizations involved. We picketed Governor Brown when he came. Well, we put a picket over there. He was picketing in Fresno. We wanted him to know that there's a problem in Sanger. And people would get mad at me because there was people like Leo Gallegos and others that were out there and saying, "You can't be doing that, Alfonso." I said, "Well, he needs to know there's a problem." So those kinds of things were real, and we were sued $1 million by the teacher that said that we were lying. We had about 25 witnesses that saw what happened. They saw the cage. I never saw the cage. But what would you do if they put your son or daughter in a cage, or granddaughter? I'm sure you wouldn't get pissed off. And right before this, I was in Madera. And I was in that walkout for 8 weeks. I had the kids out for 8 weeks, 800 kids. 200 stood out for 8 weeks, and I'm going to school, and it's hard when you're going to school learning and trying to keep up your grades. And graduates go ahead about 3.7 GPA, so it didn't matter. I don't know if the teachers gave me my A's because they were afraid of me or what. Probably, but I have to write my papers real quick, and it was really something because you believe in the kids. At the same time, we developed the Chicano Youth Center at the time as a graduate student, and it was going out there, and we moved about 7 times before we finally got at Dickey's Playground. And but it was really something to see, because I was also doing the gangs. I was real good at doing gang prevention and all this, and the gang kids believed in me. And I remember when in 74, I took about 300 gang members to the city council. The chief of police said there are no gangs in Fresno. I said, yes, there are. You just don't want to admit it. At that time, Dyer was a sergeant, so he was just looking. And I took the gang members to the city council, and I remember I told the city council, maybe we need to kill some of your kids. As a graduate student, I told them, maybe we need to kill some of your kids. So there's a problem. Because if they tell you behind me, they're going to tell you in 4-letter words. And they're pissed. But it's things like that where you say things that you don't mean, but you say them. Because if you don't say them, they get away with too many things, and they think that we're done. That we're always going to be how we are, that we never speak up. But those things were happening, and I was organizing the gang kids. And I was at a M.E.C.H.A meeting one time, and I remember my secretary told me, Alfonso, I called in to see what's going on. She said, I said, well, I'm just calling. And she said, well, you need to come over here. And she said, why? There's somebody here that wants to talk to you. She said, and I said, why? Well, because he has a shotgun and a rifle. And I said, well, okay, I'll be over there. But during the time when I called, then I talked to some people, and I remember talking to Hector Abetia and some social worker, a psychiatrist, a priest, and before you knew it, all these people were there before I got there. And the guy was in charge. The guy, remember, he was a second in command of the Nuestra Familia in Fresno, and he wanted to use Fresno. He wasn't there to do anything to me, but he wanted to tell the people that he wanted to get out of the gangs. But he said, I went to the Chicano Youth Center because I knew they wouldn't shoot me at the Chicano Youth Center, the Nuestra Familia, if I did it there. So, and he wanted the media to know that he was tired of sleeping in the floor all these years and all these times, when every night he couldn't sleep like anybody else. But I was doing gang stuff like that, and people were looking at me and saying, wow. And they were just as important as the dropouts. The M.E.C.H.A kids were very important. I developed over 50 M.E.C.H.A clubs in my times, because the M.E.C.H.A clubs were very important in terms of the leadership. We must have had about 22 walkouts in different schools, because the kids wanted something they could relate to. The schools wouldn't let them have M.E.C.H.A. They could have M.E.C.H.A, they could have M.E.C.H.A, they could have different names for their club, La Raza, Spanish club. Yeah. So it was like really crazy. So my staff would go out there, but they really had to be careful. We just, through time, we were able to develop the M.E.C.H.A clubs and use the name, and people, but it was the kids walking out all over the valley at different years, not afraid to, because they believed in what we were doing. We developed the youth leadership conferences for the Chicano Youth Center so we could do our own political stuff. As a student, under Trabajadores de la Raza was a corporation name. I didn't want to use the Chicano Youth Center. Came later. Through the Chicano Youth Center, we could do all the politics we could because it wasn't incorporated, and that's how we did everything. We picketed everywhere. We stuck up for the students. And a lot of times, when you're doing things like that, a lot of people hate you. A lot of Chicanos hated me that were in the school districts. I did my master's on school dropouts. When at that time, there was about a 60 to 70% dropout rate throughout the San Joaquin Valley. Today, the dropout rate, they say it's only about 25, 30%. I think they're hiding a lot of things, they're lying. The dropout rate is more like 50 to 60. A lot of these kids are not going to have jobs. You go in the rural areas, with everything happening, the problems are bad. But we need to really get together. And through the Chicano Youth Center, we did our own sports leagues for the students. I had 3,000 kids in my sports programs in the city of Fresno, and I used to have the M.E.C.H.A tournaments for the valley. I have about 40 high schools come to a tournament, 30 high schools, co-ed teams, girls teams, guys teams. I would say that 80% of my leadership in the M.E.C.H.A class were women, the young Chicanas. Yep. They weren't afraid. They would take on the political issues. And the guys were always wanting to play sports, so I needed them to be there because when you need to do something, they're going to be there. But the walkouts were just real. I know the one crazy walkout I had was we were in Huron and Coalinga, and they didn't let us get on the buses. And about 125, 150 kids, we started marching back to Huron from Coalinga. It takes about 8 hours to march that many miles. So we were marching about 3 miles, and then the police came out, the highway patrol, make the school come back and bring buses for us. We got on the buses about a mile before we made the bus drivers drop us off. We marched into Huron like we marched all the way from Coalinga. We had over 1,000 people that day at the meeting, and but it was really things like that. And in '69 I was still in high school, but in '79 I went in one of the high school walkouts, and then in '89 I went in that one. I met the parents every time, but I think it's important that that our youth and the parents that were involved. A lot of parents and a lot of kids were involved. And you know, when you see the kids crying, you know, the center was there because they could do their signs, they could do their, they could eat there. You know, when you have kids out for 8 weeks, you have to make food, and the center had money, so we would use it, even though we're not supposed to be using it for that. Even though we're not supposed to be making posters, signs, picket this, picket that, you know, different things. The kids were there; they knew the center was there for there, and you wouldn't have to be afraid. And there was things that through the center. It was nice when 187 happened, and the kids all walked. About 12 high schools walked out because of the center, and they walked out on their own. And where did they come? They came to the Chicano Youth Center because they knew that they could come there, and it was theirs to have a voice. You know. And the center always was there at that time. And, we weren't afraid to be there for them. And we have a lot of good students that we developed. A lot of kids that went to college. A lot of gang kids that we were able to. Most of them didn't go to college. 95% of them, you know, were gang members. Today in Fresno, we have about 5,000 bulldogs. With the extended family, it's 25,000. In the next 10 years, it's probably going to be 50,000 because the city isn't doing anything. They're letting it happen. The police love it because it means more money for them. You know, so they lie about our kids. Jerry's a nice guy, but he's a nice guy to people. You know, he was always around me. I was organizing the lowriders, and he was around me all the time because they were harassing the lowriders to men, and I organized the lowriders in Fresno. So that was my job as director. And after I graduated from school, I've been working for the city, and I did all these things. The city really never knew what I was doing, but I did that on the side. And I was doing my thing with the kids and developing the leadership. But you also have to be careful because you never know who's looking and who's wanting to put the center down.
The car shows, remember we did the car shows?
Oh yeah, we did car shows, and you know, we did one car show I remember was beautiful for the farm workers in Fresno, where I got 250 lowriders. They marched with 5,000 people that day. And then we got 10 DJs on that route to march with us. And it was a beautiful thing to get the lowriders involved.
Exactly.
And, you know, but it's things like that that the kids were involved too, the M.E.C.H.A kids. We told the M.E.C.H A kids, bring your banners and come to the march. Because when you have an organized activity and organized center, all the M.E.C.H A clubs from the rural areas would also come. They were organized. And, you know, and we took the students, like sometimes we go to fish camp to Yosemite National Park. We take about 800 kids from all over the valley.
Amen.
And it was beautiful. We go to Great America, about 15 buses sometimes. We go to all the M.E.C.H As from all over the valley would go, and you know, it was good to see our young people having fun and knowing that there was a center there that could be for them real. And the walkouts just were, I have a lot of them that are crazy, and I can't go into detail because it takes a lot of time, and our youth are there, and we have to keep working with them because they're going to be our leaders. And we know that things are going to change. We're losing probably about 60% of our youth. This generation right now, we're losing about 60% of them because the system isn't doing anything for our kids. It looks good on paper, but I see it already, and we have to keep working because we are going to vote. But you know, our kids have to believe in our political people that are out there. A lot of them don't speak up for our kids the way they should, don't do the things they should for our community. That's why our people don't vote. They laugh at them, and you know, they get mad when I talk like that, but you know, it's the truth. Somebody has to say it because a lot of them go out there and they're playing golf and going to these big fundraisers, and they forget about our problems, our drugs, our gangs, our real problems that are out there. And you know, when you become middle class, you just think about your kids making it. You don't have time for the real kids. And that's why the center was there. Thank you.
We sing a song of solidarity with freedom fighting defenders of dignity who use the truth as a shield. There is no bullet that can kill the truth when you defend it with reason. So let's join together to end this evil madness that we all call racism.